One would think.
I wish that we could have more insight on what he's doing. Only from a learning perspective. Like, I don't care about oversight. It's a private company, they can do whatever the hell they want, right? But from a learning perspective and a management perspective, I would really like to just be like the fly in the wall in there and see what he's doing and how he's handling problems and how he's identifying problems. I like he's already said like 25% of the workforce is going away. That wasn't long after he said there's 10 managers to every one person actually doing work. I mean, that makes total business sense to me. Like, but how did he identify that and decide, who's got to go, clown, and who gets to stick around? So
yeah, if nothing else, it would be a fun case study, because you're sitting there and saying, here's the strategy that we're going to implement. Then we watch it unfold, watch the results, and say, hey, that was a good strategy or bad strategy. But it doesn't do any good if we don't know up front, know, what's going on. We can't evaluate its effectiveness unless we can have some of the framework.
Yeah.
Oh,
To
we'll
me, I
see
think it's
the
I think
difference
it's
in price between buying and selling.
it's really interesting case study in running a big business. To be honest, to me, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
I don't know. I think SEO Tool Lab is about the size of Twitter right now, pretty much.
Well, let me just say welcome, everyone. We're doing SEO question and answering. And so if you have any topics at all, any questions about SEO, whatever secrets you want us to divulge, maybe we will.
Man, I'll turn my camera on for this one. I love these kind of episodes. Hold on, I gotta do the lights too. Lights are fancy.
So if we don't get any topics, then we're just gonna discuss, what's kind of going on, currently in SEO, and wait and see if people do have questions. If you do, if you don't, no big deal. We can always talk shop. One thing is that I will be doing a webinar later this week about Cora 7, what's in it. And so that's with Patrick Tuttle's group, the ranking store, I believe. After the show, I will put the registration URL in the description of this YouTube episode. So it won't be there until after the show. But if you want to learn about what's in Cora 7, I won't inflict that upon you right now. You can sign up for that webinar. Clint, what happened on SEO this week? I
actually had a plan to kind of show a method for affiliate stuff, and then people showed up and we spent an hour just answering and asking questions. It was awesome. And then I had to leave, but I wanted to show the affiliate thing, so I condensed that down into like the fastest tutorial on how to copy affiliate landing pages and repurpose that for your own stuff in history. So, but it was a good show. I had fun.
Excellent. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, go to YouTube, search for SEO this week. It might be under the channel name Digital Ear, so don't be fooled. Digital Ear is the one you want. Everybody else saying SEO this week is a liar and a faker, and you should shame them publicly. But not really. It's just Clint doesn't have the channel name. Why don't you have the channel name?
Too lazy to run multiple channels.
There you go. All right, there's your answer, folks. That's why you have to click the Digital Ear one. All right. So with that, I'm looking at some of the headlines, and one of the ones that caught my attention with a very suspicious value was a statement, question that was asked at Google, and a statement that came out of Google. No, your website does not need 200,000 words to be considered authoritative. And that number 200,000, I mean, that's a number that we in SEO testing circles, we kind of like light up about, because we have research where that number has come out of Google before. And so when we see that number, we like, oh, that's a limit we've hit before. I wonder if it's somehow related. It could be a coincidence. But the reason, like when we see that number, 200,000 words, we you know, our eyebrows perk up and we're like, what's going on here? Is because we've wondered in the past, you know, how many words can a page get indexed for? And we found an upper bound, and it was around 200,000 words. And we tested how many words can you get indexed for in a title tag. And we found an upper bound. It was around 200,000 words. And so when we see that number, you know, that kind of triggers an SEO tester that's familiar with the research. And so I saw that in the SEO news today, and I was like, cool. And then instantly it's like, you know, well, yeah, obviously you don't need 200,000 words to be anything. We rank thin content all the time. You type in games into search, and addicting games, which is usually in the #1 position, has almost no text content that is visible in their display of content. You have to go underneath the page to find keywords in text. And so, you know, it turns out that, you know, visually, you don't even need text to rank a page. Like, people don't understand that. Like, you know, you go to a keyword like games and look at what's ranking, they do not visually use text. Like, text is optional for them, and they rank all the way to #1 for heavy hitting keywords. Like, you get that? So yeah, you don't need 200,000 words to be considered authoritative. I totally agree with that. You don't. But that number is an interesting number in testing. So Lee, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought about that as well, but I also took it a different direction. It's like, okay, so if you don't need 200,000 to be authoritative, what do you need? You know, what is Google's definition? How are they measuring authority? You know, I would
Backlinks.
backlinks. Is it always backlinks? I mean, could you have like a one-page website be an authority, you know, in a competitive niche? You know,
Yep.
that's
If your
kind of
one-page website is on topic, and if Ted Kubitis, if he's seriously made an SEO page, a single SEO page for SEO consultant, and 30,000 people gave him a backlink because saying he's the best SEO consultant in the world, he's instantly authoritative.
Yep. That's PageRank authority. And typically we separate authority from relevance. So kind of the question and the answer were loaded with terminology. So do you need words to be considered relevant? Hell yes, you do. Even addicting games, you know, #1 with no visual content needs words to be relevant. But you don't need it to be authoritative, and there certainly isn't a requirement to have, you know, 31 linear feet of vertical skyscraper scrolling, which we've seen that works. That's another way to get to the top. There isn't just one way to rank. But yeah, you know, you don't need 200,000 words to get the job done. And oftentimes we rank sites with, you know, 1%, 3% of that. So what do you typically rank at, Clint? Like, I'm guessing you probably rank between 1,000 and 6,000 words on average.
When I order content, I order at 1,500, and then go through my writing process. It's kind of in that range between 1,000 and 1,500. So that's usually what I do.
Yeah, and that's total word count. So keyword usage is going to be a smaller fraction of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, you don't need 200,000 to get the job done. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I think so. I think actually, I just scripted something. I'm going to reach out to Clint offline. I have a test idea that I do not wish to display to share publicly, but I think that it would be enlightening. So, Clint, I'm going to hit you up afterwards. But I think it's interesting to look at if Google has some sort of definition of authority, whether it's content or links or some combination of the above, we should be able to unravel it. And if it is, as Clint suggests, links, well, we already had that, back from the old PageRank days. It's kind of links are important. So I don't know, what is it just another way of taking, links and calling it a different factor?
And it's not even Google doing it. It's the community who's gone into the quality rater guidelines, because it's probably one of the few resources we have into the algorithm, and they've read 4 paragraphs, literally 4 paragraphs, and turned this all into EAT, expertise, authority, and trust. And authority, you read the quality rater guidelines, and what those manual raters are supposed to do, you can see how an algorithm could be written to do that. And at the base of it, look for the about page, and then look to see if other people are saying this guy is an expert or has authority or should be trusted. And every one of those methods to go find those things is go look at other web pages and see the mentions. Ergo, look at the backlinks that are going for that. So, I mean, you can see it completely.
All right. So we we look at articles like that, you don't need 200,000 words to be considered authoritative. Yeah, that's true. But it's an interesting number. I wonder where the original person got the number. Like that's the interesting question to me, is why did the person who asked the question come to that number? So that's the interesting thing. And I know, like John Mueller said, I don't know who made up that 200,000 number. It's definitely not from Google. Maybe not, John. We've done testing and that number has come out of testing. It might have come directly from Google, like so directly, like straight from your source code. So I think you really need to dig deeper to know with any certainty that number didn't come out of Google originally. You would have to, find patient 0 for where that number came from, because I know in testing it's come out of Google. And so when we talk about it, we know the research it came from. I don't know the person who asked the question. I don't know where he sourced the number. But yeah, I even see John Mueller's statement of it's definitely not from Google. No, it is plausibly directly from Google. That is absolutely a possibility. But yeah, that's an interesting one. I saw that headline and almost got excited. It felt like, oh geez, it was going to be fire, but actually nothing got answered. But man, that number was triggering. Let's see, we got some questions here. Interpage linking, best practices, use keywords, entities, LSI, or all of the above. Well, probably all of the above. It would be pretty hard to not have those things in your navigation anchor text. Like if you had a games website, you would talk about puzzle games and adventure games and arcade games, and all those things are entities in LSI. And, people will give grief to anyone who says LSI keywords, but those people actually don't know what they're talking about, because LSI and entities are the same thing. They both represent words that co-occur on pages that rank well. It's just that one is discovered with natural language processing and the other is discovered statistically, but the lists have a lot of overlap. And so when you see somebody that's evangelizing entities and demonizing LSI, that's somebody who doesn't understand what they're using. And when you see people that vilify LSI keywords, they don't understand that not all of the entity recognition tools are available in every language. Most of those tools only operate in about a dozen or so languages. So if you have a client in Vietnam, they're hosts. They're not going to get entities out of those tool sets. So thank goodness we have LSI keywords that have a lot of direct overlap with entities and represent the exact same unit of measure, keywords that co-occur on pages that rank well, because you can fall back to those LSI keywords. And so, yeah, when I see people that, vilify it or try to run a smear campaign because the name was co-opted from a different part of academics, those are people that don't understand what they're talking about. And so, yeah, don't argue with them, let them have their heyday, and they'll be afraid to use the keywords on the page that make them rank well. And as long as they're afraid to use their keywords and you're not, you have the advantage. So, don't, if your competitors are making mistakes, don't correct them. That rule applies. But yeah, I'd say all of the above. What do you think, Clint, for inner page linking?
Oh, we've talked about this before. At the end of the day, you have to test your website. So I use exact match anchors until exact match anchors stop raising the rankings. And then I move to the next thing, and then I'll move to the next thing. There is no magic formula for every website. I know that one of my domains, I can keep building exact match anchors till I get about 5 pages, and then it stops getting an improvement, and I got to switch my anchors. And you need to do that with your website and figure that out.
That's a good point. And if you look at the data on top SEO factors, you'll see that like 6 of the top 10 factors are all diversity factors. And among them is your diversity of entities and your diversity of LSI. And so you want those to all be relevant, but you also want a good, healthy, complete set of them. And my recommendation is always go wide before you go deep in any one. I oftentimes violate that rule for exact matches when I shouldn't, but old habits are hard to break.
That's what she said.
Yep. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, we've talked about this before. I think that, the tested approach, just keep trying it until it, doesn't work anymore, and then move on to the next thing down the list is the most sound advice that anybody could give. So I'm just going to say ditto.
All right, we'll move on to the next question. Good one, though. I like that one. How do you accurately determine SEO test findings in the wild? I'm going to let Clint answer this one first because I know he has a good answer. I saw it on a recent niche website builders interview, which if you haven't seen it, Clint drops a ton of knowledge bombs in that. So look for it.
I had good ideas during that interview.
Yeah, you did.
I think I was tired.
Yeah, I think they even started slicing up that interview into the nuggets and making little 2-minute videos out of it.
Oh, nice. Let's see. And I know the interviewer, he took one of the advices, took action on it, and then doubled his traffic overnight. Awesome. All right. So how do you accurately determine SEO test findings in the wild? It's multivariable test. I mean, that's a rough one. You kind of put me on the spot. The thing that I learned from testing with people like Kyle Roof, Ted Kabitas, a little bit of stuff from Lee. I won't give him too much credit. And using Cora has given me a perspective on how to look at impacts versus academics. I think that's why this show works really well, is because Ted is stupid academic, and I'm kind of like, all right, how do I use this to make money? I want to rank, and I really don't care about the academics of it all. I really don't. Like I like LSI keywords. You want to fight over indexing or the name of latent semantic indexing versus LSI keywords and blah. I really don't give a shit. What I care about is that thing worked when I did it, and it increased my rankings, and it's doing it consistently at scale. And Ted says that scale ruins everything. And if you're trying to optimize 150 different franchise locations for keywords, and you'll see how that happens. So with testing, when we're doing single variable stuff, all we're really knowing is it a factor or not? We're not even figuring out, is it an effective factor? Like, how cool is it? How good is it? So then you get into multivariable testing, and then you can actually rate stuff. And Ted is probably the one that I see that does that often. And because he's got his old keyword stacking new testing thing. And it kind of orders the value of those tags and stuff. The other way you're going to find that is through actually applying it in the wild. Heading tags. We know how valuable they are because we did it in the wild and we saw that this is what happened. And then we do it consistently, and it happens that way every single time. There's a value there. So that's really, at the end of the day, it's what you got to do, because if Cora, Page Optimizer Pro, Surfer, Zora from SERPWoo, On Page AI, if none of those tools teach you anything, is that the ranking requirements are different for each and every single keyword. So you got to be able to go in there and read it, and then look at the recommendation that all those tools are giving you, and know that one, and that one are going to give me really good results. Those look cool, but I'm not going to waste my time. And once you start figuring that out, you'll be able to apply any SEO test that you see, single variable or multivariable, A/B, whatever, more effectively at scale.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. And I wholeheartedly agree. There comes a point where you have to stop testing and start ranking. You got to apply what you're learning. You have to actually take action. And that bias for action is a huge advantage in SEO. And not a lot of SEOs have that bias for action. A lot of people out there are rank tracking, 30 days a week, and maybe implementing SEO, 30 days a month, and maybe implementing SEO on 1 or 2 of those days. Those people are wasting tons and tons and tons of time and resources. So yeah, if you're not doing SEO and you're spending all your time measuring SEO, or if you're spending all your time trying to definitively prove a concept, or things like that, I mean, those can be huge productivity drains. Another thing is we don't try to definitively prove. It's all about the quality of the predictions you can make. So when we all look at an apple hanging from a tree and we say, what do you think's going to happen when the twig holding the apple breaks in the wind? What's the apple going to do? If we all make wildly different predictions, then the science isn't settled on that. All right. But if we all say the apple's probably going to fall to the ground, then, the science is kind of settled on it. We all kind of make the same predictions, and those predictions have fairly reliable outcomes. Now, in SEO, they aren't as reliable as an apple falling to the ground. We get a lot more cases of people predicting that the apple will sprout wings and fly off to the sunset. And so, sometimes the best we can hope for is to have better guesses on average on how and where to spend time. Sometimes the best we can hope for is to know when to stop tuning a factor because we already beat everyone we're competing against in that factor, and our time would be better spent working on different factors or different keywords. So knowing when to stop. And so oftentimes what we do with these tools is we try to take the 13,000 things you could work on in SEO and reduce it down to 2 or 3 dozen likely suspects that will get the needle moving. And so that's usually the game we're playing. We don't set out to definitively prove that those 2 or 3 dozen suspects are, handpicked by Google and hard-coded in the Google source code. Not our mission and not a good use of time. What do you think, Lee?
I think a lot of people get confused about there's a couple of different ways of testing. One is what I'll call like in the lab. That's where we're sort of constructing an artificial SERP made out of lorem ipsum pages or random alpha pages, and there you can truly control that it's a single variable that you're testing, because none of the pages have links or traffic or other factors in play. When you go out and test in the wild in live SERPs, you have all of Google's stuff coming into play. And one of the biggest things that impacts, a lot of the results you see is just the normal volatility. You see just waves of things. Even if you look at a lot of ranking reports, you'll just see that these little waves go up and down, for a particular page. So there is a degree of movement that is natural. So I like to tell people, if I go pick 10 plumbers that I'm going to test something on, and I do absolutely nothing and watch it for a month, one of those pages will shoot way up, one will shoot way down, and the other 8 will bounce within a plus or minus 3 ranking position, is typical of that sort of thing. So if we're going to say, hey, I did this thing, I went and modified this or built these links or whatever, we need to see most of those sites, not all of them, but most of those sites move in a particular direction more than what we would see as just the normal range, plus or minus 3 in this example. So, I like to say, if you really want to impress me, you have to do it multiple times. So don't come to me and say, hey, I did this thing and my page moved up 8 positions. That's nice. But if you were on the downside of your ranking thing and then you did the thing and you went up, maybe it was just the natural fluctuation of your site. One doesn't prove it. And I think that's where Clint is a great example of that, because he'll sit there and say, hey, I think this thing works, let's go apply it across 150 sites and see what happens, 150 locations, and see what happens. And he'll know that it's moving the needle. He'll have a good feel for, does this move the needle 5 positions, 15 positions? What's kind of the power behind this? But you don't expect it to work 100% of the time either. That's just one of the things that comes with this. So I think testing out in the wild is a lot harder. And I think a lot of people try it and do it badly because they don't control for enough by testing it enough to eliminate some of the other just natural volatile factors that are out there.
I want to comment on something that you said, just for anyone who's not done testing and has not heard about a distinction between multivariable and single variable and all that. The way you phrased it, you implied that single variable testing, Google does not apply or does not have those factors. So if I rank a page for a set of a fake keyword, the way you said it, you implied that, oh, those factors aren't there because it's a fake keyword. This is not the case. All of those factors are there. When you're doing single variable testing, you deliberately don't give Google what it needs to accomplish that factor. So ranking for a fake keyword like Beelzebub and ranking for a real keyword like yoga pants, the algorithm is the same.
Yes.
On both of those. So a lot of people have if you're new to the idea and concept of testing, there's a lot of people out there that are presenting it as if Google has some special algorithm that fake keywords get versus the ones that real keywords get. That is absolutely not true.
No, you're absolutely correct on that. Otherwise, why would lorem ipsum and random alpha pages rank for real keywords? So no, the it's just a matter of keeping, in those sort of laboratory environments, you can control all the other factors versus if I pick 10 plumbers in the wild, they're all going to have different content length. They're all going to have different backlink profiles. They're all going to have a different number of H2s, which complicates, measuring, the impact of any particular test. That's minimized in sort of that laboratory testing.
All right, let's see. When answering, people also ask questions best as new short article or add it as a FAQ on your existing article, best for traffic. Well, there are some theories out there that the web spam update might be targeting people also ask questions. I don't think there's good proof of that yet.
I've seen 3 people who built sites that solely did the people also ask stuff, and all 3 of them have lost all their rankings. Well, they've lost their traffic and their rankings, but and I addressed this in SEO this week too. As a matter of fact, someone came with the same question. What I've seen is there are people that just go in and their whole life is let's watch the features, right? So there are multiple people reporting that people also ask is showing less. And then multiple people saying I've lost this traffic from people also ask. So if you put 2 and 2 together, did you lose the traffic because an update got you, or did you lose the traffic because PAA is just not showing as much anymore? And I verified that. Like you used to go in there and see 4 to 5 PAAs in a search result, and now it's like 2. So if you're not getting displayed as much, all those tools will say you've lost your rankings. Well, you did because they're not showing that anymore. So, I mean, I watched this question. I saw this again. I had this question in SEO this week, and I see it here too. I mean, the PAA stuff, that was awesome. I think it's probably past time to jump on that train. But if I was going to just go around and do the PAA questions for content on my website, I would probably use them as tags and then answer them in the tags and have the tags link to associated articles on my blog. That's how I would use them nowadays.
It's an interesting piece. Ted, how hard would it be to develop a little tool where you could input keywords and it just tracked more or less what elements were in the SERP on page 1, an image carousel versus, and just sort of look at what the blended search looked like over time?
Oh, I've played with that a little bit, and I know that people have jumped on building those, and I think it's a cool technique to view the search result page, especially page 1, as real estate. And so one of the interesting things that I like to look at in terms of metrics when doing that is what is the square footage of organic results versus other channel search widgets. So ads or shopping search or people also ask or knowledge graph. Because you can compute width and height of these rectangles. They're all rectangles, they're divs. So you can actually calculate square footage of allocation to these features. And you can also do pixel depth. You can find out what's below the fold, what's above the fold because of the viewport rectangle. And all of that stuff would make for an amazing plugin for Chrome. So if you're Chrome plugin developer and you're looking for something that'll spread like wildfire, doing an SEO real estate plugin for the Google SERPs would be a very welcome tool. Those things are pretty amazing, and they do tell you a lot about Google's frame of mind. So when you monitor those things, what you're going to find is more often than not, Google's trend of diminishing organic web results over time, making them lower, making them less real estate. And so that's going to be the thing that you learn from it. You'll also learn that being page one isn't good enough. You really kind of need to be top 3. So top 3 is your best chance of being above the fold. So top 3 or die in SEO these days. Everything else, for all practical purposes, is page 2. So there's that concept. Because of all the ads and everything pushing things below the fold, it's really hard to make results 4 through 10, if you even get to 10, matter. And especially when Google's putting ads at the bottom, you can't count on the being number 10 bump for being bottom of page next to pagination anymore. So you are going to be embedded in the awful middle if you're not top 3. So yeah. I mean, what do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I agree with, pretty much. I don't have a lot to add on to what you said. I think it was in line with what we see out there. So
all right, let's see. I've been adding extensive alt text on my images. Yeah, that's always a good thing to do. It's good to be descriptive, as Honey would say. Let's see. What's the status of link for link? I get these opportunities often. A backlink is pretty hard to get. So I think the opportunity cost on a link is pretty high. I know that most of the industry is afraid of links. And if you can get a contextually relevant backlink from a relevant page or relevant anchor text, I'd argue that more often than not, that's a good thing. There are cases where there are, toxic places where if you get a ton of links from them, you will be de-indexed. So, test your source. And I usually keep a throwaway domain for testing. So when I test a new backlink source, I'll try it on the throwaway website. And if the website gets de-indexed and never comes back, then I know that link source has to be used in tiered link building, not direct to money page. Okay. And so what ends up happening then, and everything's okay in this scenario because my test website now becomes a tier for whatever I'm working on, and I need to get a new test domain. So I've just created another tier to work with using the spammy links. I can still put those to work using tiered link building. And so we generally don't care about link quality. All links are useful and can do work, but it's how you use them. So if they are untested or bad links that can do harm, they need to go through intermediate pages. You cannot use them directly. And that's why you have to test your sources. And I've had even press release providers. I've had one press release provider sync a website, and I had another press release provider, boost a website. You got to test them out because you never know. So I would say test your link sources until you feel confident they're going to do no harm. What do you think, Clint?
I love reciprocal linking. It's the easiest and freest way to get backlinks. So I go for it. I just say don't make that your only way to get links. Have something in there um, to blend that mix up, and then you're going to be okay.
Thoughts, Lee?
No, the always when you're looking at these sort of things, test it, try it for yourself, see what happens, and do it in a place where you can control the damage, or like you have, with a test site where you don't care if it tanks. Okay, now it's a paperweight. I'll use it for that.
Exactly. Let's see, a client SEO question. Competitor is first in local map with only one review and low authority site. What could account for this competitor getting first in the map pack? Well, one, we're finding completeness of profile is important. Getting all of your subcategories correctly listed is very important. We think that engagement might be fairly important. So there's a possibility that people navigating to that location. I've seen black hat local SEO where people will fake having a drive-through to get more interstate business to come to their store. Things like that can happen. And so all those little switches, all those little fields in your business profile, they can have impact. So you want to make sure that you're not ignoring most of those and thinking that the whole game is keyword and business name. What do you think, Clint? Oh, mute.
It's a tough question because keyword and business name, as far as I can see, is like the #1 ranking factor, right? So, and then you play into the idea that review count is a ranking factor. Is it? Or is it the engagement of the reviews? The reviews words are a ranking factor. Is it? Or is it the engagement caused by typing the reviews? There's so many unknowns in that maps algorithm that I think most of us are just playing whack-a-mole, guessing what we think is what it is, when in truth it's probably the business name, and having the closest to exact matches you can get. You can go to every search result that shows a map, and 9 times out of 10, the ones that have the keywords, the exact match keywords in the business name, they're #1.
Yeah, and there are cases where your search terms trigger sorts and filters. So we've seen it historically where you type in best pizza and all of a sudden your aggregate rating matters a lot. So you got to think about what terms are drawing traffic as well.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Lee?
I was going to say, I'll make the same argument as Clint with the other side of that question, which is the domain authority. It's like they have one review and a low domain authority. How are they ranking? And like, what makes you think domain authority is part of the local ranking algorithm? The same way he was talking about the reviews. There's so many facets to it, and there's so many other factors that these things also correlate with, which are known ranking factors. So. I think it's a very, very hard question. I would push it back and say, what makes you think those things are ranking factors?
Yep. And this is definitely a case where the science isn't settled. We're debating about whether the apple falls or sprouts wings all the time in local. So yeah, we're going to get more data. We're going to keep on testing and let the process be the process. All right. Let's see. Google still rank only 2 results per domain. Typically, there are exceptions to the rule, especially when you search on a brand that will disable that filter. So if you type in, CNN Donald Trump, you will get 1 million CNN pages. So including a brand tends to deactivate the filter. But in general, if you type in Seattle plumber, typically what you'll see is at most 2 primary results from one site, and oftentimes just one. But there are edge cases where the algorithm, I guess, has quality issues with what's available and can dig deeper and show more, but it's not in every keyword type of thing. What would be the percentage overlap between entities and LSI? In the relevant words that matter, it's going to be pretty good. If you had a really a large LSI configuration that gave you a lot of LSI recommendations, you would probably find almost all of the entities in that list. So depending upon the configuration, you should get, close to 100% of the entity list in the LSI list if they're being used. And so you typically want the ones that are co-occurring anyway. So the overlap between the two are kind of the magic ones. Hey, Ted, love your show. Think you might have missed my question about Ahrefs referring domains on top SEO factors. It's tanking in November. Can you explain what you think is going on? Yeah, the window changed to calendar month to date. So it's November 1. And so we're lacking a month worth of data for November. So your last good measurement was October. So give it time and don't trust the changing of the month. I'll have to put up a disclaimer explaining that on the website. So don't panic. I kind of panicked when I saw it too, but we kind of changed a lot on the site. So we just got to, correct our understanding of what the data means and how to read it. So sky is not falling. It's just November 1st with 1 day of November data. Love Clint's auto zoom cam. Clint, what are you using to do that? Inquiring minds want to know. Oh, you're muted.
It's called Lumina. It's a webcam called Lumina, and the software that drives it is AI. So that's why I cleared up with the lights. I taught the AI in the software my lighting structure, and then it auto adapts to that. So, and then it's got the cameraman feature, which you mentioned. It's really annoying to people when I rock though, because you can see it zooms in and out.
Yeah. It's a Wayne's World cameraman. Yeah, very cool.
I don't know. It just makes Clint look like an action star. I go for the rocking.
Is Google dropping, people also ask, just for this season and then bringing it back? Possibly. It could be another pay-per-click part of the puzzle for Q4. I mean, they have more information than we do, and we don't really know their motivations and their secret plans. So it's possible, but we don't have any proof of it.
Oh, if we knew Google's future plans, what havoc we could wreak,
Ted, I just noticed that my Google indexing got better once I started adding YouTube video. Any thoughts? Yeah, we have historically used YouTube for indexing, and it comes and goes. It's not always reliable, but sometimes it is quite magical. I think it's a possibility. It's plausible that could come back into play. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I mean, it could be that. It could be a Google love of properties. It could be a love of Google liking external links. It could be, just freshening up your page, and it could be random. So, keep testing and seeing what happens with it. That's the way you'll know. And then, if it happens to switch off, you'll understand that, it'll come back at some point in the future, but it's just not right now.
Yep. Let's see. Any thoughts on that, Clint, before I move on?
I mean, do what works. Who cares if it's in YouTube? Don't depend on just one thing. If you found one and YouTube's indexing it, that's awesome. While it's working, use it. Otherwise, you should be using multiple methods of indexing anyway, and not relying on just one thing. I know
love
people that
that
rely
answer.
on just one thing, and when that one thing stops working, next thing you know, oh, Google's not indexing, internet crawling, oh, my stuff's not getting indexed. Well, try the other 50 things that are out there, and I guarantee you one of them is working right now.
I absolutely love that answer. I hope you all heard it and took it to heart. I love it every time he says that answer. You know, that is one of the best pieces of indexing advice out there. Don't use just one system. All right. Can you explain your internal linking strategy for a big content site? How do you cluster? All right. So my background's online retail, but a lot of it can be brought to other types of sites. So if you look at online retail, what they do, and it's quite easy to execute, you don't have to get super complicated. You have a product page, and oftentimes you have traffic that finds the product page through various channel marketing, including search engines. So you get a visitor to the page. That visitor was searching for cute puppy coffee mug, and they got to your product page that happened to rank for it. But all of a sudden, that page doesn't quite have what they want. Doesn't quite meet their needs. So you need to salvage the disaster. So how can you salvage the disaster of capturing the target market but showing the wrong mug? And so that's where all these cross-selling widgets come into play. So all of a sudden you say you have a carousel of here are other puppy mugs we offer. So right on the page, right up there on top, you can see, oh, they have a selection of 15 other ones in case this one wasn't quite right. And each of those has entities and LSI and variants and exact matches and relevant links. Like that carousel is an SEO goldmine. All right, next one. Here are other animal themed coffee mugs we offer. Here are other coffee mug designs we offer. Here are other puppy themed products we offer. Here are other best-selling products we offer. You know, you can keep elaborating the widgets until you get very expansive coverage of what you have to offer throughout your store. And all of that is cross-linking. And so you can do the same thing with like an authoritative blog with 250,000 posts. You can be, you know, here are the other posts on SEO link building. All right. Here are other posts on SEO related topics. Here are other top posts on marketing. Here's recent news in SEO. Here's, you know, you have cross-selling widgets that are giving different views into your website, just in case the thing they entered on isn't exactly what they looked for. You know, if it doesn't quite meet the need, you have to scramble and salvage that traffic and try to deliver on the need. And so those widgets are how I would do it. Now, a lot of people out there are thinking, oh, well, I need to have my article page, and then I need to have these related topic sub pages that cross-link each other and then link back up. And well, you can do all that and it may work, but on a huge website, it's often not worth doing. It's too much work. You know, it's so much work, you've just lost any profit you were going to make doing SEO. And so I would try to simplify and try to find those widgets that help save the traffic. What do you think, Clint?
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. I think you pretty much nailed it.
Any thoughts, Lee?
You know, I think the underlying is, you know, how do you cluster? I don't think there's, you know, a proven methodology. I think there's a lot of tools and, you know, techniques and methods. You know, even I've heard Clint talk about this. You know, just kind of group it together, use your brain, you know, and go with something like that, because if you've got some of these larger websites, setting up the most intricate thing in the world, might be more expensive than the benefit that you get out of it. So, just do something, that has some degree of intelligence, and, you should be fine.
Yep, I agree. We got a hey guys, looking forward to seeing you in Dallas. That's right. We're all speaking at SEO Rockstars in Dallas. Clint, you want to mention anything about Rockstars?
November 9th through the 12th. The VIP day is the 9th. I guess we're going shooting on that day, which would be awesome. And then they have the presidential suite of the hotel locked in, and they'll have a party up there for that too. And then the speakers, 10th, 11th, and 12th, a nice selection of people are showing up. I'll be excited to hear some new perspectives on some new speakers that we've hadn't heard before as well. So it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a good year. Like the thing about SEO conferences is that SEO discoveries don't happen all the time, like good, meaningful ones. So oftentimes you get into these conference loops where you kind of hear variations of the same lectures over and over and over again. And we don't think this one is going to be like it. Because of the pandemic, we had a couple years off of the conference circuit largely. A lot of the people speaking haven't been speaking, so they have discoveries. I know some of them have great discoveries they haven't shared yet. So it's going to be, my theory is it's going to be a lot of new information. And so it's going to be a cool one. So if you need a tax write-off and you've been looking for a good one, Rockstars is a great tax write-off. Let's see. Can you explain what you think Google are doing differently this year in Q4 compared to the other years? I think this year they're more desperate to demonstrate growth. So I think whatever levers they can pull to cause that revenue growth, they're going to pull them hard. So that's my guess. Now, tactically, what does that end up being? Well, I can only guess again. And so my guess is they crippled off page. And then they're going to turn around and overcompensate in the other direction. And what it's going to look like is big brands and big box stores flooding the top, and smaller businesses going, oh my God, right before Black Friday with no time to react. So what can you do on short notice with no time to react? Buy ads. So that's my guess. No proof, no evidence. We all are entitled to our own opinions. My opinion is Google is going to be desperate for ad revenue in Q4, and they're probably going to make things miserable for us to drive people to ads. That's my theory. But again, no proof, no evidence, nothing to show. It's all allegedly. What do you think, Lee?
We talked about this a few episodes ago, about what we think, and my prediction already has not come true, because I thought that based on data that I was seeing at the time, that this year Google would roll out whatever fund they're going to roll out late October. And, that didn't happen. Obviously, it's November 1st. We were seeing some fluctuations that would look, typical of the types of fluctuations that you see before, major update. The major update didn't happen, in that window. What we are seeing, actually, Carolyn, if she can talk about this a little bit more, is there's more little weird activity that indicates that there are some broken things still at Google. And so I'm not sure when it's going to happen, although, now it looks like if we go with the historical stuff, mid-November, so a couple of weeks from now, is typically when that hits. So I would say that it's imminent, but I want to go on record saying I was wrong about the early. I thought it would come early this year.
Yeah, but if I'll put this out there, if everything that's going wrong for you magically gets fixed on or around December 26th, then you were hit by Google's Q4 plan. So that's usually the diagnostic test is, do you recover between Christmas and New Year's? Carolyn, you want to talk about Google's indexing?
Well, that was fine what Lee was saying. I actually experienced for 3 weeks, no new content getting indexed. In fact, a wholesale removal of content that was findable by its keywords without any change in Search Console, showing it as indexed. Just not, it was almost like, and what was showing was kind of reassigned to a category page, which makes sense, you know, like all the backlinks coming into the same topic kind of thing. So, and that magically lifted when I literally went through every test page since February, and what was gone is now back, like poof, like it never happened. So I do think that there was something broken earlier on. I don't know deliberately if it was like kneecapped on the delivery system or what, but that might be part of that, you know, people also ask kind of thing that they were changing. But it's sure suspicious to me.
Yeah, thank you for the update. And if people want to follow Carolyn's research, you should find it on the Crawl or No Crawl YouTube channel. You can search for it. It's updated daily, and it's a great resource. And she also has her Confessions of an SEO podcast on Fridays, which is another great source of SEO content to consume. They're short 15-minute episodes, recommend it highly. Let's see, can we define clustering briefly? I've heard it used in so many different contexts, I can't keep up. Well, I know it in 2 contexts, and I know there are more, but there are 2 that I know and use. One is the engineering concept of clustering, where you get a number of servers or a number of service instances and you use it to handle scalability. So there's clustering for being able to have capacity of delivering services of some architecture. And so oftentimes when you deal with API solutions and that type of thing, there's that type of clustering. Then in SEO, there's a concept of keyword clustering, which there are going to be a million definitions for, but the one I like best is where you kind of have 2 objectives. You have a big long list of keywords, say out of Keyword Planner or Keyword Shitter or one of those tools. You can, massive list. Which are the ones that help a page rank for a topic? Can you group them into the ones that help each other rank for specific topics? And then can you break those up into what would be useful sites on a page? So you're kind of clustering the keywords into these ones could all rank for closely related terms on a single page and help each other rank. Whereas these other ones are topically too distant and should be in a different page, but could still be worthwhile as a different page. And so clustering is kind of sorting out that mess and nightmare and figuring out which keywords belong together and which ones should belong together on different pages. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I think the clustering is a sort of a specific mathematical meaning. It's just you're looking for related groups. Can you separate groups? Can you predict which group a particular item is should be more closely associated with? And there's a lot of different algorithms. There's a lot of different math behind that, and the evaluation of it depends on your outcome. So Ted, you laid out 2 very distinct um, outcomes, for example. What are all the keywords that a single page could be about? What are all the keywords that a topically themed site should be about? Those are completely different clustering problems. Underlying them is similar techniques and things like that, but it's basically just a fancy way of saying, do they belong or do they not belong together? And there's lots of different ways of doing that, and none of them are perfect.
Any thoughts, Clint?
I think it just a rename of an old concept of creating or siloing your pages based off of related keywords. And then when the entity stuff came out and all that, the SEO world wanted to rename it and call it topic clusters so that they can sound smarter. But at the end of the day, it's really what all that research is for, right? So finding related words to narrow down your topic and say you're relevant for it, and you can do it on the page. Using entities is the number one way to knock that out, and where you can do it site-wide using the related keywords to build a silo structure.
Yeah, and Googlebot thinks topic clusters sound delicious.
Yeah.
So what's your recipe? Let's see. Can you... Oh, no, we did that one. Ted, what do you think about tag page point? What do you think about tag page pointing to post page WordPress site? Well, isn't the usual problem that a lot of those intermediate auto pages in WordPress are super thin and they're just kind of difficult to work with? They use up crawl budget and they don't have a lot of content or relevancy.
It's the deployment of those tag pages. How are you going to deploy those tag pages? They're a function of WordPress to help you sort out stuff, right? So you have a category on widgets, and then you have a tag for blue widgets, and then that blue widgets mentions in this case, the products that are blue widgets, right? But you can use those tag pages as full-fledged content pages if you want to. Go check out smallbiztrends.com. They do it fucking beautifully, where their tag pages are built out like full-fledged pages. You go there and you're like, ooh, right? But they're designed to get you to the blog posts that are specific about that category topic. So grants, small business grants is the tag, grants is a category, and then all the posts under small business grants would be under that. That's an example of how that structure works. So do you think a tag page pointing to a post page will help? How are you using the tag page? How did you optimize it? What did you do with it? A web page is a web page is a web page. Google gives two shits if that web page is a category page, a tag page, or post, or whatever. It's their web pages as far as they're concerned. So the structure of WordPress is there to just help you sort that madness out. As a good use of those, if you want to test this out with me, go ahead. WordLift AI were the first people to do it. They created a vocabulary. So you optimize a page, you put all the entities in it, and then WordLift AI would create a vocabulary of all the entities you mentioned. And that vocabulary was essentially tag pages, pointing back to the posts that use that entity. Do that yourself with your tags. Write it out. Define the entity, list the posts that are doing the entities, do like 300 to 500 words on that tag page. And you tell me if you see value from it. I guarantee you that you're going to see value from it.
There you go. That's a great answer. All right. I think that's where we're at. Let me check local. Let's see, schema, building semantic topic cluster, then marking up. Same as markup. Now, my worry about same as is that it's being treated exactly the same way that meta keywords was treated. Like people are throwing everything in there, plus the kitchen sink. So if everybody does that, it can't possibly work forever because it's just
Everyone's not
metadata
doing it.
schema.
Yeah. Everyone's not
Um,
doing it. The tools that are auto generating it, that a lot of people are using is mainly in links, and they're limiting down to 3. So everyone's not just adding multiple in there. Where that illusion came from is people look at schema like mine, where I get really well defined in there, and then instead of actually reading it and understanding what the hell is going on, they go, "Oh, you're just keyword stuffing it. Look at all the stuff you're adding into it." They have no absolute clue what the hell they're talking about. So, I to Ted's point, you don't want to get a tool topical relevance, for example. You put in a keyword in there and it gives you a pretty large set, but you don't just close your eyes and copy paste that and put it on your page. You go in there and do the research and make sure that it's on point. 9 times out of 10, all the stuff that tool outputs will be on point, but you want still got to, there's still some refinement in there. So yeah, if you're going to take the time to use Surfer to optimize your content, then you should take the time to use topical relevance and schema.org to define Google what the hell you did.
Yeah, I would use it while it works because it may not work forever. I mean, to me, it really smacks of history repeating itself. So you're like Clint said, it probably works, and now's the time to do it because once it goes mainstream, it probably won't work. So
People are too. I've been talking and teaching that method for 2 years. No more than often than not, people don't do it. You know why? Because there's plugins that make schema easy for you, so you don't have to be a real SEO and use your brain. You can just use that plugin. So, yeah, I think you're going to be fine. Yeah, maybe in a few years it'll be burnt out, but so will SEO. SEO is dead in a few years.
let's see. And I think that's it. Tag pages. Yeah, schema on the tag pages. Well, I think that's all we have. We're over the hour. This was a really good episode, so thank you for that. And just remember, after the show, I'm going to put the sign up link for the Cora 7 webinar in the description. So check back in an hour on the description of this video if you want to see that webinar. Other than that, we'll see you next week. So thank you, everyone.